Okay, so uh, ever feel like you're stuck in a business world Shark Tank? Just like thrashing around with everyone else.
Yeah.
We're diving into blue ocean strategy today to explore how to escape that frantic scramble
Right.
and make the competition irrelevant.
Yeah, it really is the difference between what they call a red ocean, where everyone is just battling over the same, shrinking pool of customers,
Boy.
versus this idea of a blue ocean where you can create uncontested market space
Okay.
and generate new demand.
So instead of trying to outswim the sharks, you're kind of finding a whole new ocean to explore. Yeah.
Precisely, yeah. And the beauty of blue ocean strategy, at least from my perspective, is that it's not just some pie in the sky idea.
Right.
Kim and Mauborgne actually give us a practical framework, and they base it on this idea of value innovation.
Okay, so let's unpack that a little bit.
Yeah.
What is value innovation and how does it relate to finding these blue oceans?
Sure. So it's not just about being better than the competition. It's about being different
Okay.
in ways that really matter to customers while also keeping your costs in check.
Right.
Um, think about a company like Yellowtail, the Australian wine.
Yeah.
They didn't just create a sweeter, easier drinking wine. They completely changed how people chose wine.
I'd never thought of it that way, but that's true
Yeah,
because Ryan always did seem so intimidating, and I think Yellowtail's branding made it very approachable, even fun.
exactly. They recognized that a huge chunk of potential customers were intimidated by the complex jargon, that
Yeah.
stuffy image of the wine industry.
Right.
So what they do,
Yeah.
they ditched the fancy labels, the tasting notes, and just
Mhm.
used clear, simple language. They even dared to place their wine on supermarket shelves alongside beers,
Wow.
directly targeting those non-customers who might be intimidated by a trip to the wine aisle.
That's such a smart strategy.
Yeah.
It's like they identified a barrier to entry for a large customer segment and then completely flipped the script on everyone.
Yeah.
Speaking of shaking things up, Cirque du Soleil also comes to mind. They took something as classic as the circus
Yeah.
and completely reinvented it.
Absolutely. They recognized that the traditional circus, with its focus on animal acts and predictable clowns,
Right.
had a shrinking market.
Yeah.
So Cirque du Soleil tapped into a whole new audience, adults and theater goers, who craved a more sophisticated blend of artistry, music, and spectacle.
Yeah, it's incredible how they created this blue ocean by really blending elements of theater, acrobatics, even opera.
Right.
But it's not just arts and entertainment, right? I
Mhm.
mean, think back to the early 1900s and the Ford Model T.
Right.
It wasn't just a better car. It was a blue ocean shift in transportation.
Exactly. Back then, cars were a luxury for the wealthy.
Right.
Ford recognized that the real opportunity wasn't in building a slightly faster or fancier car. It was in making the automobile accessible to the masses.
He really focused on, reliability, simplicity, and affordability. Like standardizing the design, streamlining production to bring those costs down.
Right.
And then suddenly, owning a car wasn't just this like far-off dream. It was a real possibility for millions of people.
Yeah, and that's a key takeaway from Blue Ocean strategy. It's about looking beyond the obvious, at the underlying assumptions that define an industry,
Okay.
and then finding ways to break free from those constraints.
So it's not just about inventing something totally new from scratch.
Right.
It's about rethinking what's possible by taking what already exists and combining those elements in innovative ways.
Exactly.
That makes sense. But how do we actually go about finding those opportunities? Is there some secret sauce?
Well, Kim and Mauborgne offer this really practical tool called the 4 Actions Framework.
Okay.
It's a way to systematically analyze your industry and really identify opportunities for value innovation.
Okay.
Think of it as 4 key questions you ask.
Right.
What factors can you eliminate that the industry takes for granted?
Right.
What can you reduce below industry standards? What can you raise above those standards?
Mm-hmm.
And finally, what can you create that the industry has never even offered?
I love how those 4 actions, those 4 questions, really force you to challenge the status quo.
Yeah.
For example, with the Model T, Ford eliminated the need for specialized mechanics by making the car easy to repair himself.
Right.
He reduced the price significantly, right?
Of course.
He raised the standards of reliability and durability.
Yeah.
And then he created this entirely new concept.
Yeah.
The mass-produced, affordable automobile.
Exactly. And think about Yellowtail.
Yeah.
They eliminated all that industry jargon,
Right.
reduced the complexity of choosing a wine, raised the convenience factor by selling in supermarkets,
Yeah.
and created a fun, approachable brand image.
I mean, this framework is really powerful. It's like
Yeah.
you're given a roadmap for identifying those elements that you can eliminate, reduce, raise, or create to break away from the competition
Yeah.
and to unlock new value. But here's a thought. Kim and Mauborgne also talk about the importance of looking at non-customers, which seems a little counterintuitive at first.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? It's
Yeah.
one of the most, I think, fascinating aspects of their approach.
Yeah.
You see, most companies spend all their time obsessing over their existing customer base,
Right.
trying to figure out, how to keep them happy, what they can tweak, all that.
Sure.
But Kim and Mauborgne argue that there's a gold mine of insight to be found in those who don't buy your product or even participate in your industry at all.
So instead of just asking your current customers what they want, what they like, what they don't like,
Yeah.
you should be asking, why are people who aren't my customers staying away?
Precisely. By understanding the factors that prevent non-customers from engaging with your industry, you can uncover all these hidden opportunities, unmet needs,
Right.
and entirely new markets to tap into.
That's so interesting. It's like they're saying, don't just look within the existing market, you got to look beyond it. Okay, so let's say you've identified your blue ocean, you've developed your value innovation, you're ready to set sail, right?
Okay.
How do you make sure your team is on board and ready to navigate these uncharted waters?
Yeah.
I mean, change can be tough, even when it's positive.
Absolutely. And that's where Kim and Mauborgne's emphasis on fair process comes in.
Okay.
They argue that it's not just what decisions you make, but how you make them.
Okay.
If people feel like they've been part of the process, if they understand the reasons behind the changes, they're far more likely to embrace the new strategy.
So it's about transparency, open communication, and giving people a voice.
Exactly. And this ties into another crucial aspect of implementing a blue ocean strategy: visual thinking.
Okay.
Kim and Mauborgne are big proponents of using visual tools to communicate your strategy,
Right.
to make complex ideas clear,
Right.
and get everyone on the same page.
You know, they say a picture's worth 1,000 words, and I think that's especially true when it comes to something as complex as business strategy.
Right.
They introduce a tool called the Strategy Canvas, which is essentially a visual map of where your company sits in the market compared to the competition. And it helps you visualize, your competitive landscape and see where you can break away from the pack.
Right.
It's a great way to communicate your blue ocean strategy to your team and get everyone aligned.
Yeah. And don't forget about those, those eliminate, reduce, raise, create grids.
Oh, right.
They take the 4 actions framework and make it visual so you
Yeah.
can map out exactly how your new offering is going to stand out.
Right. Like it makes it really clear.
Right.
Okay, so let's be realistic, though.
Yeah.
Even with the best blue ocean strategy,
Sure.
competitors are going to notice your success at some point,
Of course.
and they're going to try to move in on your territory. So how do you prevent your beautiful blue ocean from turning red with competition?
Right. Well, that's where this concept of imitation barriers comes in.
Okay.
A successful blue ocean strategy has these built-in defenses. These are factors that make it difficult or unattractive for rivals to just copy what you're doing.
So it's like you're building a moat around your blue ocean.
In a way, yeah. Sometimes the most powerful barrier is simply that your strategy is so different,
Okay.
so counterintuitive, that it doesn't make sense to companies stuck in that traditional red ocean mindset.
Right.
They might look at what you're doing and think, well, that's crazy. That goes against everything we know about this industry.
They're blinded by their own assumptions.
Exactly. They can't even see the blue ocean because they're so focused on the red.
Right. Right.
Other times, the barrier might be operational.
Okay.
Like imitating your strategy might require them to make massive changes to their infrastructure, their supply chains, maybe even their corporate culture.
Changes that they're just not willing to make.
Right. Too disruptive to their existing business model.
Good.
And then there are things like network effects to think about.
All right.
The more people that use a product or service, the more valuable it becomes, which makes it even harder for newcomers to compete. Think of platforms like Facebook or Airbnb.
Right.
Their vast network of users is a huge barrier to entry.
Yeah, it's like trying to launch a new social network when everyone's already on Facebook.
Exactly.
Good luck, right?
It is. And that's the beauty of a well-executed blue ocean strategy. It creates its own momentum and builds in these layers of protection.
I feel like we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive.
Yeah, we have.
We've explored, the core concepts of blue ocean strategy, from the difference between red and blue oceans to the power of value innovation, the four actions framework, the importance of non-customers, the need for fair process, the role of visual thinking, and then these crucial imitation barriers.
It's a lot to think about.
It is, but as you read Blue Ocean Strategy, what really struck me was the author's assertion that most blue oceans are created from within, not beyond red oceans. It's an interesting thought.
Yeah, it really is. It's like they're saying you don't have to invent something totally new to find your blue ocean.
Exactly. Or like jump to a totally different industry.
Right.
It's more about looking at your industry with fresh eyes,
Yeah.
asking those what-if questions, challenging assumptions.
And that really brings us to the heart of Blue Ocean Strategy. It's a call to action, right?
Okay.
It's about recognizing that even in the most crowded, competitive industries,
Yes.
there are blue oceans waiting to be discovered. And it's about having the courage to chart your own course and create a future where competition is irrelevant.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, the question for you, the listener, is this. What hidden opportunities might exist within your own world? What blue ocean can you create?